On today's episode of truLOCAL TV, I am talking with Dr. Jason Fung all about intermittent fasting and weight loss. Hey guys, welcome back to truLOCAL TV. I am your host, Steph, and today I am very excited because we have an exciting guest, Dr. Jason Fung, author, world-leading expert on intermittent fasting. So Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Happy to have you here. So I'm going to be completely honest. As I was getting ready for today, I started researching and learning a little bit more about you, and I found out that you are a nephrologist, and I had absolutely no idea what that meant. But it turns out it's a kidney doctor.
Right.
So I would love to just get some background on how you went from that to weight loss, intermittent fasting, type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, so kidney disease, that's my specialty. So I did medical school and then I did extra training in internal medicine and then kidney disease at UCLA in Los Angeles. And what happened is that really kidney disease is getting more common, and it turns out it's because people are having more type 2 diabetes, which is the most common cause for kidney disease. And as people have been getting more overweight, then you see increase in type 2 diabetes, which then translates into increased kidney disease. So I'm seeing more and more people on dialysis, for example. If you look at the population of dialysis, it's going sort of up and up and up. If you go to the United States, for example, you drive down the street and there's dialysis units everywhere. So it's actually quite distressing to see so many people. Of course. And this is one of the things that I realized a few years ago is that we weren't doing a very good job because people were getting sicker. That is, more people were going on dialysis. And then it struck me as very strange, like our medical system is very strange because what we do is we put all these resources into things like, treating heart disease or kidney disease or dialysis at the very end, when this sort of thing is completely preventable. So type 2 diabetes causes a kidney disease, therefore you need to get rid of the type 2 diabetes. And in order to do that, you need to get people to lose weight, because if they lose weight, then they're not going to have type 2 diabetes, which is going to mean they're not going to get the kidney disease. So really, if you want to focus your efforts, you really have to focus on the sort of upstream, the root cause, which is the obesity epidemic. And that's where I became very, very interested in the question of, weight loss, what causes obesity. And it turns out it's not what most people think it is, which is, calories, calories, calories. The whole idea of calories is actually quite misguided. And that is, I think, one of the main reasons why this sort of obesity epidemic takes off, because we tell people to count their calories as if, all calories are equal. And you hear this all the time, calorie is calorie. But that's not the question I asked, right? The question I really want to know is, are all calories equally fattening? And the answer actually is no. Right. And if you understand that, then you can say, okay, well, what do you need to eat to gain weight, to lose weight? And then therefore you can start to impact people's diet, get them to lose weight, and then get them on the road to health. And intermittent fasting was one of these things that I thought about, 5-6 years ago that nobody was doing. Yep. And I sort of thought, why? Why not, right? It doesn't seem like it's that bad an idea. If you don't eat, you're going to lose weight. So therefore, that I thought, well, sort of makes sense. And scientifically, I could go through all the literature and everything sort of sounded good. So then I just started to do it. And that's when we really started to see people really get results with that. And that's when we started using it therapeutically. That is, if people don't eat and their blood sugars come down, well, then they don't need their medication. But that's great, because now you're doing it naturally without using medications, and that's what people wanted too. So
I'd love for you to actually expand on that, this whole relationship between calories, weight loss, and intermittent fasting. So if anyone's new to you or the concept of intermittent fasting, what exactly does that mean?
Intermittent fasting is really just any time that you're not eating. And if you think about it, it's supposed to be part of your sort of everyday life. So there's supposed to be this sort of cycle where you feed and then you fast. So when you feed, what happens is that your body wants to store those calories of food energy, right? So when you eat, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, for example, you're eating, you're trying to store food energy. And then when you go to sleep and when you're not eating, say after dinner to breakfast time, then you're fasting, you're not eating. And your body has to take those calories of food energy back out. Yep. So there's a cycle. So you're transitioning your body from being in the fed state, where you're storing calories, to the fasted state, where you're burning calories, right? But you can't do both at the same time. You can't store calories and burn calories at the same time. It doesn't make sense. Your body, is not going to do both at the same time. So therefore, that's where you get the word breakfast, because you're supposed to feed and then you're supposed to fast. And that's the sort of cycle that we've lost, because if you think about how things have changed from sort of the 1970s before the obesity epidemic, people used to eat 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And we have the studies to show that that's what happened. Now people are eating constantly. They're told to eat, 6 meals, 7 meals, 8 meals a day, small snacks,
mini
graze.
meals and,
Go all the
boost your
time.
metabolism, these
Yeah,
concepts.
and there's actually no evidence that it's beneficial at all. And it sort of was one of these byproducts that just sort of snuck in there, and everybody just started repeating it, and then it became gospel truth. Because what happened was, of course, there's this big low-fat mania, really, in the 80s and 90s, where people were told to eat low fat. So people ate a lot of bread, because that's what was on the bottom of the food pyramid, right? The bread and the pasta and all that. So people ate the bread and jam in the morning, and by 10:30 they're like, oh, I'm really hungry, right? And we know why this happens, because when you're eating the white bread and jam, your sugars spike, your insulin spike, and then it crashes. So by 10:30 you're looking for a low-fat muffin, right? So you go and get a low-fat muffin, same thing happens. Insulin spikes, glucose spikes, then crashes. At 12, you're ravenous. It's like you're in a famine, right? So you start eating again. At 2:30, it's the same thing. So you're constantly in this cycle. And so people are eating because they're really, really hungry. And that's what happened. So then people thought, well, we're eating low-fat foods. We're eating lots of, white pasta. We're eating lots of white bread. So low in fat, right? All this jam, so low in fat. And we have to eat 6 times a day, so therefore eating 6 times a day must be good. Of course, nobody in the history of humanity had ever done that, right? Because
we didn't have food available like that, of course.
Exactly. So this is the thing that people missed, was that if you take sort of natural, real foods, your body responds to it in a totally different manner. So if you eat sort of like meat, for example, it's got a lot of protein, it's got a lot of fat in it, and it's going to activate certain hormones, including satiety hormones. So you activate things like peptide YY, which reacts to protein, for example, cholecystokinin, but they're satiety hormones, so it keeps you full. So, and everybody knows this, because if you eat steak and eggs in the morning, you're not hungry at 10:30, right? That thing is just sitting there, right? Or it's like, well, okay, I'm not hungry at 10:30. I don't need to go find myself a low-fat muffin. But if you ate 2 slices of toast and jam, yes, you are hungry, after at 10:30. So they miss the fact that, hey, this whole low-fat thing, this whole eat a lot of carbs thing, which was from the sort of 70s, 80s, and 90s, was leading to this sort of increased meal frequency, which means that if you're keeping your body in the fed state, now instead of being, eating from, breakfast, lunch, dinner, you're eating sort of breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. You're eating basically 15 hours of the day, and that's what the studies have found. So the average time people are eating is around 15 hours, which means that you've cut out that fasting period. So again, if you think about it, so 15 hours of the day, you're storing fat, and only sort of like 8 or 9 hours, you're burning fat. Hey, that imbalance is gonna lead to obesity. It's not that hard to understand. So really getting back to sort of these natural sort of feeding and fasting cycles, and if you're trying to lose weight, you can simply increase the amount of time that you spend in the fasted state, where you're forcing your body to use up its stores of energy, right? And it turns out there's all these other benefits to it, and in terms of hunger and satiety and all this sort of stuff, there's all these other side benefits of it that we hadn't quite realized that.
So it's really this manipulation of time, right? And when you're eating, when you're not eating.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that it's a natural part of the cycle that we've sort of lost in this sort of rush to snack all the time. You see it in schools too, right?
Of course.
As kids, you learn that, hey, you have to have a mid-morning snack. Hey, you have to have an after-school snack. Hey, if you're playing soccer between the halves, you need to have some snacks, right? It's like, where did we get that
from?
Around
for 20 minutes. That's it.
I know. It's like, it's crazy, because it's like, when I was a kid in the 70s, I went out to play. We play soccer. Nobody was chasing me around with a granola bar, right? Now it's like, oh, please stop doing what you're doing, which is healthy and fun. Sit down, have
Get your
this
snack.
juice and granola.
Right.
And it's like, and then it's like, why are these kids getting so fat? It's like,
course.
yeah, because you're feeding them all the time. So that's the whole point, is that you have to get back to these sort of natural feeding and fasting cycles if you want to try and swing the pendulum the other way, for example, because you want to lose weight, then you can increase the fasting periods.
Because I think for a lot of people, you know, they hear something like intermittent fasting and it's becoming more popular, right? So immediately defenses come up. They're like, oh, it's just another fad kind of thing. But what you're really saying is that this is actually very natural. We've just moved so far away from it.
We've moved so far away from it because if you think about it, of course, fasting has been around for thousands and thousands of years. You see it, you know, in every major religion, right?
Yeah.
So you see it in Catholicism, you see it in Judaism, you see it in, you know, Islam, you see it in Buddhism, Hinduism, everything, right?
Yeah.
So around Lent, you're supposed to fast. Around Ramadan, you're supposed to fast. And around Yom Kippur, you're supposed to fast.
Yeah.
Mormonism, you know, so there's all these sort of traditions. So clearly, humans have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years, right? At least 2,019 years, for example, right? People have fasted, and they've done it deliberately, right? It's not that they didn't have food, which was probably true in the caveman days, but they had food, but they would deliberately not partake of it for spiritual, religious reasons. And it's not because, you know, the church leaders wanted to kill all their parishioners and make them unhealthy, right? It's actually the opposite. They knew that this was something that was sort of deeply, intrinsically healthy for you to do once in a while, right? It's just part of this natural cleansing sort of cycle, and that's what they called it, a cleanse or whatever.
To your point,
like
where
that.
it's even built into the word, like breakfast, for example.
Exactly. So you know that it's actually part of human history, and we've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years, and oh hey, since 1990, it's no longer good for you, it's bad for you. It's like, what are you talking about? Right? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Of course.
And what do you think is the point of body fat anyway? It's a store of food energy for you to use when you have nothing to eat.
It's really there as a protective mechanism,
Exactly.
right?
And if you have a lot of stored food on your body as body fat, then use it, because that's what it's there for. It's not there for looks. It's there for you to use. So use it. There's nothing more natural about it.
Of course. Guys, be sure to subscribe for more content, because we will be back with Dr. Fung very soon.